Of Hillary Clinton's Wall Street speeches by the group WikiLeaks. Justice reporter Paula Reed tells us about the leaked documents.
Late Friday, WikiLeaks released a batch of more than 2,000 emails it says were hacked from the account of Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. The emails include what appear to be excerpts from the Wall Street events that earned Clinton millions of dollars. Clinton has been under pressure to release transcripts of her speeches from her opponents.
I would think that a speech so great that you got paid so much money for, you would like to share it with the American people. So I think she should release the transcript.
She made $21.6 million giving speeches to Wall Street banks and other special interests, and in less than 2 years, secret speeches that she does not want to reveal under any circumstances to the public. I wonder why.
But Clinton has said she won't release them unless all candidates are held to the same standard.
When everybody does it, okay, I will do it.
The new excerpts hint at why Clinton was reluctant to make them public. In a speech in early 2014, Clinton acknowledged she is out of touch with the middle class, noting, "The life I've lived and the economics, fortunes that my husband and I now enjoy." She told another group that politicians need both a public and a private position to appease voters. Her words hit squarely on her perceived weaknesses on relatability and trust, and are likely to come up in tomorrow's town hall-style debate. WikiLeaks says this is just 1% of the emails that it intends to release before the election. The State Department will also be posting previously unreleased Clinton emails for the next 2 weeks. Rena?
Paula Reed following the Clinton email trail. John Dickerson is the host of Face the Nation and the political director of CBS News. He joins me now from Washington University in St. Louis, where Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump will face off in their second debate Sunday night. John, first off, I want to ask you about Donald Trump. How do you think that the fallout from this tape will play out?
Well, there have been lots of calls from Republicans that he should step down as the party's nominee. People are calling for that, even though it's not clear how that exactly would work. There's also people who've roundly criticized him. The question for him is what his response will be on the debate stage and how much more this will grow as leaders in the Republican Party try to send him a message, but doesn't sound like he's listening.
And we know Hillary Clinton now has more questions to answer than she did 24 hours ago. What do you expect to hear from her tomorrow night?
Well, Hillary Clinton will try to put into context the remarks she made to Wall Street bankers, remarks that are at odds with how she campaigned in the primaries, that also raise serious questions about what she says behind closed doors versus what she says in public. And that's a challenge for her, particularly because that's her Achilles heel, that people don't trust her. And these new emails go right at that weakness. OK,
John Dickerson joining us from St. Louis. Thank you, John.
WikiLeaks has thrown another spanner into the works of the US presidential campaign by leaking transcripts of Hillary Clinton's private paid speeches to major financial institutions. Now, some of the comments that she made during those talks are in stark contrast to the statements that she's been making during the election campaign. RT's Laura Smith takes a closer look.
This leak blows wide open comments that Hillary Clinton has made in paid-for speeches to financial institutions and other paid audiences. All this stuff that Hillary Clinton didn't want revealed. These leaks do it for her, and as her campaign suspected, they do contain highly embarrassing political trouble spots for her. There's an overarching theme in all of this, and that is that Hillary Clinton said back in 2013 that she felt there was a need for a public position and a private position on policy. She said if everyone's watching all these backroom discussions, then people get nervous. And from these leaks, she certainly appears to have lived by that. For a start, she admitted in one of these speeches something that no electorate wants to hear, and that is that she feels she's out of touch.
I'm kind of far removed from the struggles of the middle class because the life I've lived and the economic, fortunes that my husband and I now enjoy.
The middle class is the social and economic engine of our country.
Similarly damagingly, Clinton reveals her close and warm relationship with financial institutions and bankers. In public, she said back in January, "I'll make sure that Wall Street never wrecks Main Street again."
We've got to make sure that Wall Street never wrecks Main Street again, and we will.
In private, though, she says something very different.
I represented and worked with so many talented, principled people who made their living in finance. I represented them, and I did all I could to make sure they continued to prosper.
And this private-public difference is not limited to domestic affairs. It runs to international policy, too. As we know, the US is ramping up its rhetoric on imposing a no-fly zone in Syria. That's Clinton's public position.
I do still support a no-fly zone because I think we need to put in safe havens for those poor Syrians who are fleeing both Assad and ISIS and have some place that they can be safe.
In private, though, she admits, quote, a lot of Syrians would be killed.
To have a no-fly zone, you have to take out all of the air defense, many of which are located in populated areas. So our missiles, even if they are standoff missiles, so we're not putting our pilots at risk, you're going to kill a lot of Syrians. So all of a sudden, this intervention that people talk about so glibly becomes an American and NATO involvement where you take a lot of civilians.
Elsewhere in the region, we know, of course, that the US has friendly relations with Saudi Arabia, and that's something that Clinton has participated in. Behind closed doors, though, she labels them exporters of extreme ideology. Hear that.
The Saudis have exported more extreme ideology than any other place on earth over the course of the last 30 years.
She also said in one of these paid-for speeches that she favours more robust action in Syria, but she admits that it has been complicated by Saudi Arabia shipping large quantities of weapons, and again, I quote, pretty indiscriminately to rebel factions there.
Well, Hillary Clinton's long resisted the publication of those private speeches from which she has made a fortune, $22 million to be exact, with more than half of it coming from trade groups and financial institutions. Her remarks from those meetings stirred angry reaction from the public.
Clinton attacks middle-class heartbeat of America. The family with small businesses, those struggling to attain their goal, kiss that goodbye.
She's far removed from middle class, so when it comes to issues with the poor, she's on another planet.
Here is what Hillary thinks of the little people.
Clinton's rival, Donald Trump, is also making headlines with his decade-old remark that he can grope women because he's famous. Investor and writer Charles Ortel thinks that American voters face a tough choice a month from now.
What we have going on in this country is we have a revolt against the establishment in both parties. So these revelations and all the wishy-washy, meddling comments that Hillary Clinton has made that are frankly ignorant about trade and about the economy, I think are really going to upset progressives who otherwise might have held their breath, held their noses, and voted for Clinton on November 8th. So I think the turnout for her is going to be less than expected. I think that, everyone understands who thinks about it that Donald Trump is somewhat vulgar. And certainly when he was a playboy in his youth, he was outrageous. It's not good behavior. I have a daughter. I wouldn't want to try to defend this behavior to my own daughter. It's horrible behavior on his part. Horrible that he was joking about it and thought it was so funny while his wife was pregnant. But nonetheless, I think the WikiLeaks and other revelations that are in progress and likely to come out before the election are going to be very, very damaging to Hillary.
Unfortunately for Clinton, WikiLeaks has promised yet more damaging revelations as part of its so-called October surprise. And the group's chief, Julian Assange, was actually intending to make the announcement himself from the balcony of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's been holed up for so long. But he cancelled that appearance at the very last minute over security concerns. Around the same time, WikiLeaks claimed that Hillary Clinton had joked about plans to kill Assange with a drone. However, when asked about that, the presidential candidate said she never recalled making such a joke.
Did you ever joke about droning Assange?
Well, I don't know anything about what he's talking about, and I don't recall any joke. It would have been a joke if it had been said, but I don't recall that.
Clinton's team hasn't yet confirmed or denied the authenticity of the emails which were leaked from the account of campaign chief John Podesta. He was quick, though, to blame the usual suspect, accusing Moscow of trying to help Donald Trump. WikiLeaks responded, saying that Podesta shouldn't be crediting Russia for the work of the whistleblowing website. The leaks, the latest in a series of hacking incidents that targeted the Democratic presidential campaign. America's formally accused Russia of cyber attacks designed to influence next month's US presidential election. The allegation came in the form of a joint statement from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Department of Homeland Security. And it was peppered with phrases such as "we believe" and "consistent with past methods," although no actual evidence was put forward. The White House's press secretary has suggested that no evidence will ever be forthcoming.
I'll let the FBI speak to what evidence they've been able to amass, but I think they're also cognizant of the fact that as soon as they make a declaration like that, most people are going to understandably be interested in seeing that evidence. And some of that evidence may not be something that we want to show.
We discussed Washington's accusations with media analyst Lionel and FBI whistleblower Colleen Rowley.
Two components, leaked and Russia. If you go back and look and do a history of all of the stories involving Russia and cyber attacks, it was Russia versus Russians versus linked, and stories that we perhaps have talked about where in the very same story that says Russians linked, it says later on, though the government denies any connection whatsoever. So remember, we don't, as long as you can fit it in a headline or a bumper sticker, that will suffice. Nobody's going to read further. When in doubt, blame Russia, and you got your story.
By putting out simply this very lukewarm assertion that says this is consistent with motive and motivation, no one can prove that wrong, but there's no proof either way. And I think, again, it's just a way to end the story and the investigation so that people stop asking, when are you going to prove that this was perpetrated by the Russian government?